Channel. After the August recess, Congress returns to work today, but Democrats say they are looking to hold back progress in making America great again.
In terms of Democrats standing up, should your Senate colleagues hold the government funding, hold their votes back on government funding in a couple of weeks in order to pull something from Republicans, whether that is getting the National Guard out of Washington, D.C., less weaponization of the DOJ? Should they be holding back their votes on the funding?
Is this even a question? Of course we should. Did we not learn our lesson when we acquiesced early on in the administration? Look, we didn't start off on a good foot. We had Democrats vote for Lake and Riley that has allowed for deportation without due process. We had Democrats vote for capitulation. We need to stand our ground.
Now, on the other end, GOP leaders will be concerned with keeping federal agencies funded and averting a partial government shutdown. Congress has until September 30th to finalize the government's budget for the next year, or there'll be a shutdown. According to the National Taxpayers Union, Congress must use this process to cut government spending. Joining me now to discuss is Senior Director of Government Affairs for the National Taxpayers Union, Thomas Aiello. Welcome back.
Hey, Stacy. Thanks for having me.
All right, so it's that time again. Now, you and I have had some very interesting discussions. We've talked about how important it is to cut the government, to make sure that government is functional and also not wasteful. And we did a really great thing. We passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which was an exercise in compromise. There were many things that you and I went over in detail that could have been better there. But now we possibly get to maybe fix some things. What do you see happening next?
So it wouldn't be September without a government shutdown fight. So as you mentioned, Congress has until the end of the month to figure out how they're going to spend our money over the next fiscal year. So there's one of three scenarios that can play out. One, if Congress doesn't agree, there's going to be a government shutdown. That means government agencies, they don't have the funding, they can't stay open. Nobody wants that. Two, there could be a short-term funding option, which means Congress agrees to a continuing resolution to fund the government for a short period of time. Or three, there could be a bipartisan budget agreement, which would fund the government through the end of the next fiscal year, which is September 2026. Right now, it's unclear about exactly which path Congress is going to take, but we're encouraging them to continue to negotiate and hopefully spend less money next year than they did this year.
So, you know what I don't want? I don't want that continuing resolution. That was something that was like we started learning about the evil of continuing resolutions and the Tea Party movement. Now we're here. I mean, it's 2025. Good budgetary order should be restored. I'm remembering, it was not Mitch McConnell. It was McCarthy. He's the one who said, if you make me Speaker of the House, I will pass individual funding bills for I guess it was the agencies, the largest tranches of spending for government. They could not get that done. So, yeah, he's gone and we still don't, what? The Pentagon can't pass their audit. They have never passed an audit. They're going to get $1 trillion in spending this next go round. Tommy, it's not looking good. Not good.
No, it's not. But here's the silver lining about the whole thing. The House right now, with a strong Republican majority, they are beginning to pass all of their appropriations bills. I think they've passed a handful so far. Almost all of them actually spend less in this upcoming year than they did last year. The one exception is the Pentagon. As you mentioned, they're getting $1 trillion over the next fiscal year. That's the largest in history when we're not at war and they can't pass an audit. That's a real problem. But on the plus side, there's cuts across the board to some of these other agencies. But here's the problem. That's only the bills that Republicans have passed. Because Democrats can filibuster in the Senate, it's unlikely that any of those bills are actually going to become law. So what that means, and this is what we're very fearful of, is even though Republicans have done their job in the House, there's a concern that they could negotiate with Democrats and actually spend more next fiscal year than this year. That would be a huge slap in the face to all of our voters and the base that voted for Republicans as the fiscal responsible party. If we spend more next year than this year, that would be a huge disservice to our voters. And I don't think that they're going to treat us very kindly next year if we continue to break our promises.
Yeah, so the midterm hinges on successfully, beating the Democrats. And I hate to make it seem like it's, we just have to beat the Democrats. Everything is about beating the Democrats. But the Democrats' policy right now is, pro crime, pro illegal immigration, and it's also pro spending. They don't ever say, we'd like to cut in these areas unless it's, sending money to Israel, which we actually send them a small amount in comparison to what we send to other countries. And the other countries use it for despotism. They use it to oppress their people. The money that we send to Israel is used by them for security. And the majority of what they get from us, they pay for. So, because I actually looked that up because I was, accused of being a Zionist, which by the true definition of the word, I actually am a Zionist. Anyone who believes that countries have a right to exist is by extension a Zionist. But anyway, I digress. Tommy, I think the big deal here is if we can't work with Democrats, it makes it harder. But it also means that our elected officials on the right have to be a little more willful. They have to have a little more fortitude. They literally have to kind of stomp into that building, the House. They have to stomp in there with an attitude and basically say, we're here to do the business of the American people. And if we have to go old school 1780 on you and smack you across the face with a glove and take fisticuffs in this room, in this chamber, and end up in a Charlie Brown dirt ball on the floor, so be it. This carpet's good. It's heavily padded from what I understand. They need to get down and dirty with this and fight for what they ran on.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Look, we are $37 trillion in debt. We didn't get there by accident. We're also running $2 trillion a year deficits. We're spending $2 trillion more than what we take in tax revenue. It's unsustainable. So I think, and what Republicans need to realize is we just cannot continue as if deficits don't matter. There's a reason we have this record high inflation under the Biden years. It's because we spent like drunken sailors and we thought we can just keep printing money and there's no consequences for it. The way we deal with inflation is by addressing that $2 trillion a year deficit. Now, I think Republicans recognize that there is a big spending problem. However, I don't think that they, at the end of the day, will negotiate a deal with the Democrats that will substantially raise spending. And I know you said you don't like government, you don't like continuing resolutions. It's sort of a double-edged sword because if you just spend the same as last year, technically you're not increasing spending. That's technically a good thing, but again, it doesn't address the core part of the problem that we need to spend less. And when you look at the numbers, about 67% of the budget is on autopilot. Those are things for Medicaid, Social Security, and Medicare. We can really only cut the discretionary part of it, and that's only a small sliver of the problem. So, we really do need a holistic approach for how we structurally address our deficits. So hopefully Republicans will get serious this month and say, we're not going to go along with the same old and increase spending by working with the Democrats. I'm really hopeful that they're going to stick to their principles and not increase the deficit.
Yep, I'm with you. And I suggest people go to your website, ntu.org. That's where you can find it's an unbelievable wealth of information. Tommy Aiello, thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
All right. And when we return, after President Trump literally obliterated a majority of the crime and murder in D.C., a judge has ruled that he cannot use the National Guard in California. Up next.